Hello and welcome back to our AutoCAD 2008 CAD clips. In this lesson we're going to start to talk about layers, and layers we use to control the visibility of objects in our drawings. We use it to control color of the objects and line type, dashed lines and hidden lines and phantom lines, and we also use it to control indirectly the pen weights and the line weights of our plotted objects, because generally color will indicate the line weight or pen weight. That's how we get our definition in our drawing to look nice. Some lines are darker and heavier than others, and the reason why is because of the color they are, and the reason why they're the color they are is because they're on a certain layer. So it all kind of comes back to the layer control. We also use layer to control visibility. We can turn, off the layer circle and turn on the layer square, or lock the layer triangle, or freeze the layer ellipse, so we can control the object's visibility by putting the object on that layer. Every object has to have a layer. If you click on here, it's going to tell you what layer it is. Up till now, all I've ever been using is layer 0. We haven't touched on layers yet, depending on where you are in the reference material here. So what we do is, and this is a very simple form, in the real world we have many more layers. So I'm just going to go open a file to start with and show you what a kind of an end result example might look like. So I'm just going to hit my open button on here, and under my sample folder, down here under sheet sets, under civil, I'm going to open up this file right here. EX41 opens it up, civil drawing with some contours, etc. This is more of a realistic file, a civil engineering file, and it's got all kinds of shots and information. You can see it starts to get very busy. If you click on here, it tells you it's on layer F1, -E1COL. Okay, that's their layering convention, and this is on layer, E6COL, etc. This is on a different layer, so every company might have their own layering system. Okay, you can see the layer name, and it also gets reflected up over to there. So as you move around, depending on where you get your drawing, you will always be challenged with dealing with other people's layers. You'll never get away from that. Depending on where you are in the food chain of being the CAD person. So we have to learn to understand how layers work and be able to flip them around and move their, convert layer standards one to the other in ways like that. And that's what really starts to speed you up. This is on layer, something UH maybe for hatch. Trees are on, layer tree line. You can see it's here, the properties palette over here. My properties palette is docked, of course. You can take that and you can undock it or dock it if you want. So, we try to split up our objects into different layers, and generally we keep our text separate, and then we break down our philosophy depending on what we might want to see or not see. Okay, we can go in and for instance, there's a layers toolbar. We can right click on any toolbar and we can go into the layers 2 toolbar, and on here we can say freeze, wait for that to come up. We can say freeze this layer. Boom, and it'll freeze all the objects on that layer. We can freeze this 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 layer, okay, this layer. So you can go through and start to, manipulate how things look by turning layers on and off. Oh, you can't freeze your current layer. Working my way around, etc. So what it's doing is manipulating those layers. Okay, we can also do an undo, and we also have a layer previous, which will undo just the layer stuff, which is really neat. So we have, this is more of a real life example of where we might have layers. In a civil example, architectural might have walls and doors and windows and fixtures and text. Okay, one of the things I have to stress is usually your text is always on split up into different layers, even by size, but your text should not really be on the same layer as the layer of your model objects, because text is an annotation object and it's subject to scale factor. Okay, so you'll see different companies. Some of them are more intuitive than others. Sometimes you look at the layer name and it's just a bunch of numbers and letters, and somewhere that office has an index that tells them that layer name and has a description. Sometimes the layer name is very descriptive and it pretty much spells it out. E1 ABL, I guess to someone that might mean something right away because they work in that office and they're used to seeing that layer name. For me, I look at that, I don't know exactly what it is, but that's the reality of it. You have to be able to deal with other people's layers, and it really depends on, this is on layer 0, on the drawing and who makes it and where it comes from. So again, this is a civil example and it comes with our installed AutoCAD. I'm just going to close that one file off. Go back into here, starting to look a lot pretty simple in this file. And that's really just kind of our first look at layers, kind of looking at a completed example. All I've done here is I've just drawn a rectangle, and then I've drawn some lines from midpoint to midpoint. I drew a circle, then I drew a square, specific size, an ellipse, and then I used my polygon tool. If we go to our draw toolbar, okay, polygon to make the triangle, and I just specified 3 sides. There's our ellipse from over here, circle from over there, and then rectangle I clicked on here and I did a distance option and specified even distances to make that square. So I just have those objects sitting there for now, and we'll come back in our next lesson and create some layers and start to use layers in a simple format here to teach you how the concepts work.